President Cyril Ramaphosa is visiting COVID-19 facilities around Gauteng. His next stop will be the Johannesburg Central Food Bank in Booysens. It's also used to assist communities in need of food parcels. Our reporter Chriselda Lewis is there. Very good afternoon to you, Chriselda. Describe to us what the food bank is like and a little bit more about who it's meant to service.
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Nzinga. That's correct. This will be President Cyril Ramaphosa's second stop, the food bank for the Johannesburg region. And this is where donations are received for distribution. I understand that over 46,000 people have called the call centre in distress over the past 3 weeks for assistance. And about over 34,000 families have been reached thus far, with 173,000 individuals reached in terms of goods supply. So the food parcels that you see here would be for a family for 1 month's supply. You would also know then, Zinga, that the issue of shelters is something that will also come up. So you have about 3,000 shelters who are also accommodated, where, of course, those who are in the shelters will receive some assistance in terms of the cooked food that will be given to them at those particular facilities. Well, just a few moments ago, we heard President Cyril Ramaphosa speaking at the Nasrec Quarantine and Isolation Makeshift Hospital. That's where my colleague Samkele Maseko is. And we heard the President say that, food banks are one of the answers to South Africa's problems, in particular in this global pandemic crisis. So this is, of course, where the donations themselves will come to. And from here, they'll be distributed to the various regions. For example, you would have a food bank in the Ekurhuleni region, in the Tshwane region. So this is the main central point from where they will go from and be distributed there before they are given to those in distress in those different regions. So if you look at, in terms of the threshold that has already been reached at this stage, we're looking at about 74% of people that have been reached in terms of the numbers that have called for distress. I'll get out of the shot just a moment for you once again. Amongst the items that you will see here, in the majority, your essentials such as mealie meal, some pilchards, some cooking oil. You'd see some of those who are tasked with that duty here are packing some of these away. So the President will come and inspect this particular food site and the food bank itself. And just a few moments ago, as I was alluding to then, Zinga, the President also saying at the Nasrec Quarantine and Isolation Makeshift Hospital that there is a sense of indignity that goes with somebody queuing for food. But this is the particular answer, in that those who would make calls for distress will get that kind of assistance. So certainly as South Africa tries to flatten the curve and continues to ensure that there's no continuous spread of the coronavirus and the measures, of course, that the President had announced last night, this will certainly speak to assisting some of those who are amongst the most vulnerable, those who do not have access to food, the daily basics that they will need for them and their families. So we're expecting the President to arrive here at about 12:30 or slightly a little bit later on. But of course, one of the statements that was also made by the Gauteng Premier, David Makhura, just a few moments ago, he also indicated, you'd recall, there had been some scandals around the distribution of food and widespread allegations of corruption relating to the distribution of food. And one of the statements made, of course, we've heard the President previously indicate in his address to the nation that he was concerned about such allegations, and also the Gauteng Premier, David Makhura, just a few moments ago at the Nasrec Quarantine and Isolation Makeshift Hospital, indicating that there are no councillors that are responsible for the distribution of food parcels. This would also eliminate an instance where you would have a number of political parties who are affiliated to the assistance of people, or also some of the allegations that we've also seen where certain political parties have been accused of using it as a way to score political points amongst the poorest of the poor or the most vulnerable. So we're expecting President Cyril Ramaphosa here at about 12:30, and certainly I'm sure we're hoping that he will share some sentiments about how far this process is.
Chriselda, very briefly, where's this food at that food bank coming from?
Great question, Nzinga, and I actually just forgot to allude to that. My understanding is that at this particular food bank, there are about 50 donors, and I understand most of them are your companies, 50 donors that are on the list who are ensuring that these supplies are made possible. And those 50 have been contributing towards what we see here at the moment. But of course, there are continuous calls for assistance and many more other companies and even individuals to come on board to assist, because certainly if you look at the number of people who require assistance and those who have brought some assistance forward, certainly government's going to need all the assistance that it can, because you would know that in particular such as a country as South Africa, you may of course be able to continue with a lockdown and even phase it out in particular stages. But once there are instances where there are communities that are hungry and are, of course, wanting some kind of assistance, there does tend to be a sense of distress related to that. So that's what government has been concerned about, and it's ensuring, in particular with these food banks, that the poorest of the poor and the most vulnerable are assisted.
Chriselda Lewis coming to us from Booysens in Johannesburg at a food bank where President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to visit in about half an hour's time. She will continue keeping you updated on what's taking place there.